Mr. Poilievre is continuing that same tradition with massive cuts to health care, and those cuts will accelerate privatization.
Hello, Mr. Singh. Drea Humphrey with Rebel News. Your party takes great pride in standing against hate such as white supremacy, Islamophobia, and online...
Sorry, I didn't get your outlet.
Drea Humphrey with Rebel News.
Okay.
Your party...
You know where I'm going to go with this, all right?
Can I speak?
Yeah, you can. I'm just going to say you know where I'm going to go with it, though.
Your party takes pride in standing against hate such as white supremacy, Islamophobia, and online hate speech. Yet you stay silent about ongoing attacks against Christians, even after Conservative MP Jamil Javani's order paper question revealed that over 200 churches have been targeted by arson and vandalism since claims of remains being discovered at former residential schools swept the nation in 2021. These claims have been disproven by bands that excavated and remain unproven by those that have not. Will you condemn the rise in acts of hate against Christians today and explain what your party will do moving forward to keep Christians safe from hate in Canada?
Again, thank you, but I'm not going to respond to an organization that promotes misinformation and disinformation like Rebel News, so no, I'm not going to respond to your question.
Please keep the questions and answers short. We're just getting up to the time.
Perhaps you didn't hear me. Over 200 Christian places of worship have been attacked in Canada since 2021. Many served First Nations communities, many were historic, and they diverted police and resources and put others at risk. What do you say to Canadians who see your refusal to answer, especially from one of the few media outlets here that are not funded by the state, as proof that a vote for you is a vote for a dangerous radical party that gaslights the public into thinking it stands against hate when its silence is instead emboldening Christophobia?
Your question is another example of why I don't respond to agencies like Rebel News that promote misinformation and disinformation.
Everyday Canadians and not rich CEOs, and who will be able to stand up to companies that rip Canadians off. I have a holiday, so you'll have to listen to me again. No, you feel that the Indians feel that your opinions are not acceptable, and you refuse to answer questions from journalists with whom you disagree, as you've just done now. I presume that in your opinion, we should be punished one way or another. So how are you any different from authoritarian politicians that you would imprison for their ideas? This is another reason why I do not take questions from Rebel News, because you promote disinformation, and your question is an example of that.
Question in English, please.
This is what Ivy League universities you can get into with a 3.6 GPA. 90.
Good evening, Mr. Singh.
Do you really want it in English? I could do it if you want. No, you're just joking.
Next question.
Kate McKenna from...
If you click this right here, I'll teach you a little known trick for finding low price stocks on the right-wing, very right-wing, so often from this one particular outlet. Any idea what's going on there? There's three right-wing, very right-wing media, we can call them media, websites that are present in there. They get in line to ask a question like anybody else. Their accreditation has been approved by the Commission of Debates, and so they get the right to stand in line and ask a question that they choose to ask. In this case, you saw Mr. Singh, and this has been his position for some time, to refuse to answer questions. Rebel News in particular traffics in misinformation, facts, lack of facts, and as you heard in that question, which was woven with some truth and some things that weren't true. Yes, there have been burnings of Christian Catholic churches. Yes, there have been remains of Indigenous children found in various places around the country, which she...
Really had a great time in that debate and was really excited to be able to share our vision for how we can fight for Canadians. But a couple of questions remain, I think important questions in people's minds around Mr. Carney. One, he did not commit to closing offshore tax havens. Two, he still didn't disclose his interest in Brookfield Investments. And it's particularly interesting given his comments around Westinghouse, a nuclear company that is owned in part by Brookfield. So his interests are still outstanding and Canadians have questions. And I think most importantly, I confronted him on his plan to balance the operating budget in 3 years and how that would mean massive cuts to the Oui, effectivement, oui, on a soulevé des craintes qu'il y a des organismes qui font la promotion would meet our needs and what we're capable of accepting. That's how we should do it.
I also want to ask you about
Follow up and then you.
I also want to ask you about nuclear power. You touched on that in the French debate. I'm wondering if you can give a clear answer as to whether you think Canada should use more nuclear power.
It's not the source of power that I favor. I would rather us make investments in hydroelectric and wind and solar. Those are the areas of energy that I most favor. I am open though to looking at nuclear and looking at nuclear as an option, but it's not my first option when it comes to investments, but it is something that I think can be a potential option. We have to look carefully at it.
You interrupted the other leaders a lot during this debate, especially when they were trying to answer the question of the moderators. I'm just interested in knowing, why do you think that was the right strategy? And do you think it helped somebody turn voters off?
I'm a scrappy guy. I want to fight for people. I want to fight for the things that I care about. When someone says something that makes no sense, like when I hear Mr. Poilievre talking about housing, the guy built 6 homes when he was the housing minister. That's got to be called out. You know, when Mr. Carney is talking about giving a tax break to millionaires because they're wealth creators, how is it? And they're the folks that create wealth. Yeah, they sell stocks. Selling stocks and should not get you an advantage in the tax system. I think that's a problem. So things that don't sound right, the things that don't sit well with Canadians, I want to call them out. I'm ready for a debate. People can challenge me and push back on me. I'm ready to push back on people that say things that don't sit well with Canadians that are not true.
You can make that point. It's your time to speak. You can now lose this ability, which is something that we normally see in politics.
Well, I believe in, of course, I've listened and heard people speak, and I was able to hear other folks' opinion. I also think that you should be able to call someone out. It's a part of our national conversation. You'll no one will ever fault me for being anyone like Pierre Poilievre and his attacking ways and his approach, which is kind of demeaning to people. That's what people have seen from him through his history as an attack dog, as what folks have called him in politics. That's obviously never going to be me. But yeah, I'm going to push back when people say things that are wrong and things that are going to harm Canadians. When people don't want to be honest about the fact that they're going to cut. Mr. Carney is not actually telling Canadians the truth about his cuts to healthcare. I'm going to push back on him. So I think that's what Canadians expect, to be as dependent as we are in the United States. And during the pandemic, we saw we can't be so dependent on foreign governments or foreign countries to build or to supply us with the things that we need. So we've got to build those things more in Canada. Fundamental things like PPE, like vaccines, the manufacturing capacity to build the things that we need in our country have to be supported. One way to do that is if we have a procurement plan. This might address some of your question. That we have a procurement plan where a rule around procurement at the federal level, where if we're spending federal money, it has to go towards Canadian businesses that hire Canadian workers and create good Canadian jobs. Healthcare, at a time when we need to be strengthening the thing that Canadians hold most dear when we think about who we are as a country. People wrap themselves in the flag of universal health care. Well, he wants to cut it. Canadians need to know that. If you want to stop that, you've got the power to vote for New Democrats who will go to Ottawa and defend our health care.
How do you encourage kind of
Dodgers in Canada. And as Prime Minister, his priorities were priorities that helped out super rich folks. The tax cut, the flip-flop on capital gains helps out mostly millionaires. But he didn't put in place an increase in the amount that a worker who gets laid off because of the trade war gets to be able to pay their bills. And he's talking about cuts. So I think both of those visions for Canada are problematic. I think that we've seen that neither of them deserve to have all the power, that you need New Democrats there fighting for you.
Common people united for our common home. And that's why my common sense plan is to axe the tax.
Who is Pierre Poilievre? What does he promise? And does he actually deliver?
The federal Canadian elections are coming. Major win in the riding of Nepean Carleton under the Harper government. What made it remarkable wasn't just his age. It was that he defeated the sitting
how unions collect dues. For Pierre, this was about freedom and control.
These are the two things that he talks about more than just about anyone in Canadian politics. Critics, though, said O'Toole failed to take a firm stance on the key ideological issues that were top of mind at the time, proving that trying to please everyone often pleases no one. O'Toole's tenure ended with his resignation on February 5, 2022. Within 72 hours of O'Toole's resignation, Poilievre launched his campaign at an Ottawa gas station.
I want to put you back in control of your life. Make this the freest country on earth. What do you think?
That's a very good idea.
The location wasn't spontaneous. It was the opening move in a campaign that would make a for the
Career politician to the core.
But the real test is coming. We'll see how he's able to adjust to the curveball that is Mark Carney or the Trump's tariffs that are all over the place.
The next election could be one of the most defining moments in Canada's political history.